The Egypt Air crash. The FBI wants to make it a criminal case. Investigators find no sign of an airplane problem, but there's new worry about the words of one pilot. The Supreme Court will decide whether to hold the line against prayer at high school football games. And countdown to 2000, a race to save the great animals of Africa for the next millennium.
This is the CBS Evening News. With Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. There could be a decision within 48 hours on whether to shift focus on the crash of Egypt Air 990 to a criminal investigation. This comes after initial information from the jet's cockpit voice recorder has raised serious questions about what the pilots were doing before and during the plane's final moments and plunge into the sea. CBS's Bob Orr has the latest. Bob?
Dan, federal investigators tonight are not yet calling the crash of Egypt Air Flight 990 a crime, but that may be where this bizarre mystery is heading. CBS News now has learned that NTSB Chairman Jim Hall has had many discussions with FBI Director Louis Freeh about turning over control of the investigation to the FBI. But that might depend on how investigators interpret exactly what is on the cockpit voice recorder. The voice recorder, pulled from the depths of the Atlantic over the weekend, is raising serious questions about the actions of the pilots in the cockpit of Egypt Air Flight 990. Sources say the recorder has captured the voice of one of the pilots, believed to be the co-pilot, making some type of religious statement that could be a prayer just before the jet went into its fatal dive. But there's no agreement on what the prayer means, whether it was routine or something more ominous. In any case, there is no proof at this point that the prayer had any connection to the crash that followed. CBS News has also been told that after the jet began to dive, the voice tape recorded what sounds like the cockpit door opening and a voice asking something to the effect of, "What's going on?" And it's not at all clear that both pilots were working to save the plane. Sources say a voice, believed to be that of the captain, can be heard urging his partner to, quote, pull with me, a command you'd expect to hear from a pilot trying to pull out of a steep dive. Apparently, there is no response before the captain then says, "Cut the engines." The flight data recorder tells us both engines were shut down just seconds before the jet lost electrical power, briefly climbed, and then crashed. With no signs of an airplane problem, the investigation could be headed to the FBI.
We are concentrating our efforts on determining from the evidence, including the cockpit voice recorder, whether or not this investigation is to remain under the leadership of the National Transportation Safety Board.
Part of the challenge is that most of the cockpit conversation is in Arabic, so investigators continue to listen to the tape, trying to better understand the voices and also the other noises that can be heard in the background. But we're told a decision to transfer the case could come in 48 hours. Dan?
Thanks, Bob. A short while ago, I spoke to CBS News consultant Jim Kellstrom, former deputy director of the FBI and lead investigator in the crash of TWA 800. I asked him if he thinks investigators will eventually be able to coax more information from the so far disappointing cockpit voice recorder.
It'll tell us, the investigators, it'll tell the American people, it'll tell the people of the world eventually what happened. It's not hitting us right in the face, apparently, but they'll work on this tape. They'll have audio experts enhance it. I'm sure in the next 24 or 48 hours they'll have an idea of what went on in the cockpit.
Are we going to know eventually what caused this crash?
My opinion is that we will know, Dan. We may not know the total story of why, if there was intervention, why that intervention took place. I think it's probably going to be a story that's woven through all the troubles in the world, particularly in the Middle East, the troubles in Egypt, the troubles that date back to the assassination of Sadat and the attempts on Mubarak's life. Whether it has anything to do with that, I don't know, but I suspect if there is intervention, it has something to do with this war that's going on for people's minds.
Jim Kellstrom, thanks.
Thank you.